Good day and welcome to Gotta Love the Knowledge. Today we're going to talk about home finances and breaking the spending habit. Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you not see a way of saving money? There's no way you see of paying down your credit cards or other debt? Well, I have several videos on a variety of ways to save and build retirement and investment accounts, but the first step many people cannot get past is the mental challenges related to actually changing the real action, saving money and paying down debt. So welcome to my YouTube channel, Gotta Love Knowledge, where we'll learn about a wide variety of hobbies, finances, and other information. Now, my original education is economics. I originally had some experience in the insurance investment arena, but I was never a good salesperson. I love to work with money and people, but I was more an economist looking at the cost benefit of a sales item for a person than actually selling it. And back in 96, 97, I decided to go and actually start my own finance company to help people build and shift their mental blocks and savings and investments versus actually building their debt that they had. But I put that aside and came back to in 2017. But due to some health issues, I put that aside again. I'd worked in community discussions on a variety of subjects and decided to add all these to the YouTube channel. This brings up one of the original clients I had. They're a family of three, both parents worked, but they simply could not pay their bills each month, even though they had good income. In order to evaluate and analyze their financial situation, you have to understand their debt and income. Simple thing, right? It's actually much harder than it seems. When you ask people to provide all their debts and all their income, what they usually have is a half vision of this. People put aside their normal expenses as little impact, when in fact it normally is a large impact. But when you need to analyze someone's financial situation, you need to know everything: electric bills, gas bills, mortgage, any gap insurance, property taxes, car note, monthly gas expenses, food expenses, hair, clothes, meals with tips. People usually push aside tips and don't add it, even bubblegum expenses. Because literally everything counts. Back to the family of three, their initial breakdown of debt, income, expenses was so full of gaps you just couldn't tell anything. They're missing a good $600 of monthly expenses or more. I had to drill down and ask questions over and over again to get their own blinders off their eyes of how they spend money. What we learned was that they like to buy coffee. Once in the morning for both of them, once at lunch, and on the way home. And sometimes not at night, including both hot chocolate for the kid from time to time. This was such a common occurrence that the expense of it simply was discarded in their thoughts about how they spend money. Basically, for mass simplicity, $10 in the morning, $10 at lunch, and $10 on the way home. That's $30 a day, or if you're good at math, for 30 days a month, is $900. Their actual cost is more over $1,100 a month. That actually was more than their mortgage. They didn't have the money from month to month. You're like, gee, I wonder why. Their largest expense was not their home nor their car, but actually coffee. They were so surprised and truthfully blindsided that this ingrained purchase added up to so much. They never thought of how many times they are in the coffee shop over and over again. This helped them see the light of where the money was going. Each time you spend money, you may unknowingly make a decision of what is more important to you and its priority in your life. Coffee, car, buy or lease, all the options versus a base car. All these decisions are done all the time. It comes down to you understanding your ability to pay and whether the benefit of having something is worth it. Being unbiased in your own income and expenses seems to be a large hurdle many people have. I told people to list out all their expenses for 3 months, each and every penny. Yes, every penny. This forces people to really watch what they buy and when they buy it. Just by tracking all the expenses, it may help break the blockage of how people spend money. This is one of the first steps people have to overcome. How do you actually spend your money? After that, you have to get people to make a commitment to themselves of redirecting the monies not spent to other things. So when you buy something, you could say, I'm not going to buy this. Instead, I'm going to put the money that I was going to spend to buy this into a savings and investment account, or even put it towards paying down debt. Now, these decisions happen all the time, and you can redirect money at any time to those various options of investment accounts, savings accounts, and debts such as credit cards. For instance, many people don't know that you can make a payment to a credit card as many times as you want, at least with my credit cards. Your bank may be different, or credit union. Let me use one of my recent credit card purchases as an example on how I paid it down. So on September 9th, 2020, I bought an item for $821.28. I could have paid cash, but I don't like spending all that cash in one amount. So I set aside the cash in an account, and then I put it on credit card. Of course, credit cards list out monthly payments, so my first monthly payment probably wouldn't have been until November 1st for about $17. Of course, far less than the $821 I spent. I actually made my first payment on September 14th. That's 5 days later, of $75. But there was no payment due, of course. But I did not want to build debt. But I used the credit card to allow my cash flow to not be interrupted through the month or even 2 months. There's nothing that prevents you from making a payment whenever you want. You don't have to wait for a payment due date and think of how large the debt is. I break it down. I check my cash flow each week. I check upcoming expenses and debt payments, and then I make payments in chunks of free cash flow that I have sitting there. Not all of it, just some of it as the month goes by. My next payment came September 16th. Yeah, that's 2 days after my first payment for another $75. My cash flow looked good, and I was at the halfway point of the month. The next payment was for $50 on September 24th, 8 days after the last payment, as we head towards the end of the month. Then another $50 on September 28th. I think you're kind of seeing as I'm taking a look at my expenses coming up, making decisions of whether to buy something else or use that money to pay down debt. And another 50 on September 29th as we're at the end of the month. Of course, at this point, I can see my monthly cash flow won't have any more debt, so I'm looking towards the next month to see if it would be the same, which it usually is because I have actually little debt. So on September 30th, I made a $150 payment. So now you're thinking, wait, in September, I made 6 payments for a total of $450 towards the $821.28 debt. That only leaves $371.20 to the debt now, to the credit card. At this point, there's no interest being paid. All of it's going towards debt. And there's no fee for me to make these payments. Most credit card companies, banks, credit unions allow you to make as many payments as you want. Very few people do that. Very few people make additional payments. Most people wait for the due date and hopefully at least make that payment. As I mentioned before, normally I prefer to save up money and pay cash for purchases, but for larger purchases, I put in a credit card and control the cash flow a bit better just in case something happens. Another change I like people to do in regards to debt is thinking of interest that you pay a company as paying someone else to manage your debt. So now, if you're paying interest on a credit card, break apart your principal payment to the interest payment. The interest payment, you're paying the company to manage your debt. What service are you paying them for? Just for them taking your money and the overhead of calling you and everything else you do if you don't make your payment on time? But wouldn't you prefer to pay yourself for managing your own debt? There's a solution to that I use, but one has to be very disciplined. And I'll be covering that in another episode, as that comes after one instills the mentality of controlling your debt and building wealth. But back to the credit card debt. My next payment was until October 30th for $263. That left $108.20 balance with no interest paid yet. On October 31st, I paid the remaining down and didn't pay 1 cent of interest. But how do we take this information and shifting one's ability to pay down debt or to think differently? When you go to the store or a coffee shop, think really hard if you need something. Do you need that cup of coffee? Or if you just made it at home? So instead of buying a cup of coffee, make a $5 or $8 or $10 credit card payment. At first, you may see that payment go all towards interest. But as you do this more consistently, you will get ahead of that interest being charged and lower your principal more. It will be hard at first. You won't see a tidal shift of debt, at least not initially. It may take time depending upon what your debts are, but the simple mental shift will help you to start to get ahead versus being behind. So next time you're at the store, simply put something aside that you don't want or that you do want and don't need, and make that expense a payment to one of your debts. Do this 5, 10, 20 times a month. It actually doesn't really matter in most cases. And your credit card company, in this day and age of electronic payments, you can just make that payment anytime that you want. You'll start seeing those debt balances start to drop. In another episode, we'll tackle how multiple debts for a variety of outcomes and balancing out which payments to make to which ones to help you lower that debt even faster. But after you start getting this mentality, then you'll be able to better start learning how to save money. And that will lead to my $17 concept to build investments and build wealth. Oh, and that family that started making their own coffee and got ahead of their debts and started being a family of savers and not spenders. If you want to follow me and review your expenses on this YouTube channel, then shoot me an email in the description and we can start tracking all your expenses and income for 3 months, and we can review it online and offline to help building your wealth and decreasing debts. Well, thank you for watching. I hope I've guided you into learning a bit more about how to control your debt. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Any questions and comments, leave them below. You gotta love the knowledge, you gotta love your life, and you gotta love money. See you next time.